For our assignment, we are studying Introduction to Basic Soccer Skills. For the purpose of this analysis, I will discuss the soccer dribble. To classify the skill, there are two perspectives. One dimensional involves systems on a continuum. Looking at size of primary musculature categorises dribbling as predominantly a gross motor skill. Distinctiveness of movements defines the skill as continuous. Open and closed classification puts dribbling as an open skill. In Gentile's two-dimensional taxonomy, soccer dribbling is 4D as the skill involves body movement, object manipulation, and has regulatory conditions that are ever-changing due to the environment. Now I'll explain the key aspects of dribbling. Have your arms on the outside of your body and move them as you run to create momentum and to help shield yourself from defenders. Have your knees slightly bent and a straight back, assisting to maintain balance. Land on the front of your feet to increase speed and making you more agile. Use your place foot, the one that's not dribbling, to push off the ground, helping to improve the movement time and regain your balance. Raise your knees to establish momentum, thus increasing sprinting and dribbling speed. Try to use different parts of your feet to kick the ball and keep it close. Next, I'll discuss measurements of performance. The performance was measured qualitatively through observation during a dribbling agility test around cones, where the effectiveness of their movements was compared to the previously mentioned steps, therefore assessing how well they completed the task. Additionally, during an agility test, we assessed the movements quantitatively using a timer to measure the duration of the trial. We decided to use a combination of both measurement types to ensure the movement was accurately assessed, helping to establish a baseline and assess the level of improvement once completing the program. Here, I'll go through two theories on the stages of learning and the expected outcomes. According to Fitz and Posner, there are 3 stages of learning, as you can see, and here are examples of each progression. Cognitive, just dribbling in open space. Associative, dribbling around cones, and autonomous, dribbling with the defender. The next theory is Gentile stages of learning. The first stage aims to guide the learner to understand the movement pattern, allowing them to make mistakes and improve self-efficacy. The second stage looks at the learner's ability to adapt their movements to the demands of the environment. Although learning cannot be directly measured, we can infer it from one's performance. To do this, we use 2 tests. The first test was retention test. For this assessment, the participant was taught the skill initially with feedback on performance and then practiced on their own without feedback as per the training program. Then we conducted a retention test after 2 weeks to assess the level of learning that had remained since the initial session. And the second test was a transfer test. In the beginning, the participant practiced the skills in a closed environment to establish the basic skill of dribbling. Once in the associative stage, they dribbled around cones to replicate soccer demands and eventually with a defender in the way to stimulate a game situation, which is referred to as novel variation.
Positive transfer is when the learning of a skill proves helpful to learning in another skill. This occurs usually when there are 2 skills that are similar in some way. When the learner masters one of the skills, this makes learning the second skill easier. We can foster positive transfer by ensuring the learner understands the similarities between the skills and making sure the basics of the first skill are mastered before moving on to the second. We have fostered positive transfer as our learner successfully progressed from a basic skill to more complex skills that use similar movement patterns. Verbal cues and instructions need to capture the learner's attention with no distractions present. They should be kept clear and concise, mainly focusing on the key aspects of that movement pattern. By giving the learner verbal cues, this may encourage them to self-talk, which may enhance their learning of that skill. Motivation and encouragement is also crucial for a learner. Research has shown that the use of encouraging words will boost a learner's self-efficacy. Consequently, they will be more likely to be able to perform that skill to the best of their ability. The demonstration of the skill should include the invariant features which never change. Verbal instruction is not used during the demonstration, as the learner benefits more by watching first and then listening to instruction. It is important to demonstrate the skill as frequently as necessary, as this will depend on how quickly the learner acquires the skill. We had an adequate demonstration of each of the skills before the learner attempted them. This involved the instructor physically demonstrating this drill at training and then explaining what they did. The learner then had the chance to attempt the drill. Augmented feedback is movement-related information about the task which complements the learner's intrinsic feedback. Intrinsic feedback is the information received by the learner as a result of performing the movement through kinesthetic senses. Knowledge of results is the external information about the outcome or goal, whereas knowledge of performance refers to the information about the actual movement pattern and the reasons behind it. For example, the learner's knowledge of results might be that they missed the goal. The knowledge of performance would be missing the target due to incorrect foot angle. Feedback about performance can either be concurrent or terminal. Terminal feedback has been shown to be more effective when trying to promote intrinsic feedback. Failure to provide augmented feedback has been shown to degrade learning. sometimes to the point where individuals can no longer detect their own mistakes reliably. This being said, the guidance hypothesis estimates that augmented feedback is needed for motor learning when used to reduce error. However, it is detrimental when relied upon too much, more specifically the knowledge of results. Ways in which we reduce the chance of this happening was gradually reducing the amount of feedback given to the learner over the program, and to eventually let the learner fend for themselves.
For our training program, we went with distributed rather than massed training sessions, as shorter, more frequent sessions are more effective for continuous motor skills. Research shows that sessions can be too long and infrequent for optimal learning to occur, and better learning resulted from practicing for shorter periods but more frequently. In the initial stages of our training program, a segmented approach was taken, separating the movement into separate parts so that one skill is taught before another, first the dribbling, then passing and receiving, then shooting, so that eventually all three can combine together in sequence. Blocked practice is more beneficial for a beginner as it is associated with low contextual interference effect, which is memory and performance disruption, allowing them to break down and learn the skill more easily before moving on to a more random practice setting later on once some level of skill had been acquired via the block practice. This is because random practice is associated with a higher level of disruption, producing greater learning benefits, for example, in retention and transfer tests. A variety of practice tools was used in our training program, including cones and markers helping with ball control exercises as well as aiding in direction change and signalling change of action. Mental practice was also used as a combination of mental and physical practice contributes to optimal learning. Imagining the skill actually creates electrical signals in the muscles, and in the early stages of learning assists with answering the question of what to do, as well as helping with correction later on, as it helps the learner go into autopilot. Homework was also used as active learning done at home gets the participant more involved in thinking about the task.
Maybe do a couple?
Without feedback, which avoids the guidance hypothesis where the participant depends on feedback from. Some of the motivation strategies employed in our program included practicing with a partner so that the sessions are not being done alone, variability of the practice sessions and what was included in them to reduce boredom and facilitate learning, as well as encouragement and feedback, with emphasis on the frequency of that feedback to promote their own critical thinking, as well as setting targets within those sessions, for example, number of goals. Some of the tools used in our program to assist with attention and memory of the participant included variability of the drills and the session layout, verbal demonstrations and verbal cues used when teaching, as well as giving the participant 5 to 10 minutes homework per session so as to engage them in active learning through self-critiquing so that they do not depend on the feedback of the trainer. With respect to transfer and retention test scores, the random practice layout was used as that it correlates with a higher contextual interference, which results in higher retention and transfer test scores.